So extrude is basically for pulling out stuff. So if you were to simply move something, okay, let me just move the edge a bit closer to the center. Okay, let's say if I were to simply move the face up. What it does is it's just pulling it up and the rest kind of slant, right? So it's still connected to the main geometry in that sense, okay? It's just pulling up that particular face. But if we were to extrude, Control E, is a very different concept, isn't it? Okay, it's actually creating like, it's pulling out an additional form. So if you are building an arm, a finger, okay, a head, you want to pull out the form. Okay, so you will just use the extrude instead. So remember last week, a lot of you had this problem whereby you all forgot to pull out, right? And then you all Control E again. So what happens is you have something called a hidden face, correct? So whereby in one mode it's not there, but when you press smooth preview, it's just a preview, but you can see, hey, it's actually a hidden face. So this one causes a lot of problems, okay? Sometimes if you want to move certain things, like for example, oh, I want to move this, right? And then you pull, and you go, hey, what's this? You know, you get like weird stuff, or sometimes you even get like overlapping forms, okay? All these kind of flicker things, right? It's due to unclean extrusion. Okay, so always remember when you extrude, you need to pull it out straight away. So you can look at the inputs, right, over here, to check how many like extrudes you have recently. So I know that I've only extruded one time by right, but I see two. It means that I kind of made a mistake somewhere. Okay, so that is what we covered last week. This week we're going to do 3 more tools and then 2 more actions. So can you create a plane? So under your polygons tab, okay, the shelf, can you click on the plane here? Now, Multicut tool, right, is very similar to insert edge loop. It's also cutting, but you get to cut any way you want. Okay, it's kind of like, it gives you the freedom to create special holes. Like if you want a star-shaped hole, edge loop is not going to help you very much. Okay, so what we're going to do is to look for the tool over here. Where is it? Yeah. Under Mesh Tools, you can see Multicut. Okay, the shortcut key for Mac is Ctrl-Shift-X. Alright, and what you can do is, it looks like there's nothing there, isn't it? But, wait am I in the right tool? Okay. Ctrl-Shift-X, right? Okay, so if you want to cut your model, yeah, you notice that your icon is like a tiny knife over here. There's actually a lot of shortcut keys to this tool, I believe. But then let's just learn the basic of it. So if you just click and drag, you can create your own cuts. If you decided that, oh, I want to backtrack, right? I kind of create wrongly. Just press delete, okay, to backtrack. And press enter to exit, okay, to basically confirm your cut. So you can kind of drag to join the points together. Okay, you can try to close. Okay, to get out of the tool, just press Q. Remember, Q is to quit, or Q is to go back to selection mode. Okay, so every time you feel like you're stuck, it's acting weird, or you cannot select something, you might be inside a particular tool that you didn't know. Okay, so that is multi-cut. Okay, second tool we're going to learn is how to close up holes. Okay, so let's delete the holes that we created within our Append poly. So I accidentally create a dialog box. Okay, so just go to faces, select the face and delete away. And we want to close up our hole, right? So let's look for something called Append poly tool. So it's under mesh tools. Append poly tool. And you need to click on the very first edge. So once you click on the first edge, you will notice that any open hole, right, would have the purple line, correct not? And there's actually arrows pointing in a certain direction. So if you can't see your arrows, right, it might be because it's either too big or too small. So in order to change the size of the arrow, you press on the plus minus key. If it's too big, it will also disappear. Okay, so too small also you cannot see, right? This plus minus applies to any gizmo. For example, your move tool or your rotation tool is too big or too small, right? You can use the plus minus to help you see. Okay, so I've clicked on my very first line, it's turned green. Okay, so it is pointing in an anti-clockwise direction. So you just need to follow and click on every single edge. Especially when it's odd shape, right? You cannot skip the edges because the moment you skip, right, there might be holes in between. So make sure you complete the circle until all the purple is gone. Then you press enter. This one, no shortcut. Yeah, not everything is shortcut. So you just have to look for it. Mesh tool, Append poly. Okay, so practice. Just create some really odd, like L shape or, you know, like your Tetris. Do y'all play Tetris? Yeah. Long time ah. Okay, like at least at least when I say Tetris, y'all know, you know. I think in 5 or 10 years time, if I say Tetris, they'll be like, huh? Yeah. Okay, so just click, 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 click. Make sure you don't skip anything. If not, it won't close properly. Okay, next thing, the last modeling tool that we're going to look at is also to close holes, okay, or to kind of join things together. So if let's say that we have vertex that we want to merge together, like for example, there's a hole, right? There's a hole and we want to merge these 2 points together, okay? What we can do is go to edit mesh, and there's something called merge and merge to center. So you can use these two. Alright, merge to center. So I'm just going to use merge, click, and it's just going to join together in the middle. Okay, so select 2 points, edit mesh, merge. So you keep having to go back to the menu, right, which is very like leceh. So a shortcut key to repeat what you just did is G. So if you just extrude, right, and you want to extrude again, press G. Okay, if you just insert edge loop and you want to activate the insert edge loop again, press G. Okay, so G is basically to bring back the same action. So you can just very quickly like merge. You can even merge more than 2. You can merge a bunch of them together. Now, in the event that, let's say you try and merge, right? Like I have this tree and I try to merge and nothing happens, that's because they are too far apart. Maya cannot tell how to merge them. So there's this little box here called distance threshold. If you increase it, right, it's gonna pop. Okay, same thing. If you merge, let's say you select a whole bunch. In fact, if let's say, okay, let's say, right, I want to merge these two together. Just gonna keep it close. Let's say there's a very small gap in your model. Like, oh shit, you know, like there's a gap. What should I do? You want to merge, right? You don't have to slowly like merge, 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 merge. Okay, it's gonna be next morning. So what you can do is you can select a whole bunch of them and you can do a merge. Okay, and sometimes what happens is the threshold is too great and everything merged together, even from the sides, right? It all comes together as one. So that's not exactly what you want, correct? So what you can do is, if it merges too many of the things that you don't want to merge, you can adjust the threshold so that it only merges like vertically. See that? Or you can even like manually type in 0.01, 0.1, 0.05. Yeah. Okay, so just try and get a number whereby it matches the threshold, and then you can kind of merge exactly what you want. So basically, merging is just to close up holes, and you don't have to do it one by one. Okay, in the event that is over merging, the distance threshold is your friend. Okay, or if you want to merge more, the distance threshold is also your friend. Right, so that is basically it for merging. So when do we use merging? We use merging when, besides having holes in your model, sometimes when you model like in symmetry, for example, you model the left side of your character. You don't model both, right? You just model one side. And then you decide, okay, I'm gonna just mirror it over. Okay, like I told you, artists, we do things the easy way. Okay, we want to save time, so we only focus on half. And then once you want to bring the model to the other side, there's a hole in the middle that you need to join. That is when your merge tool comes in. Okay, you start to merge the center. Okay, so that's it for our 3 modeling tools. Is there any questions so far? This is what is gonna actually, you won't really see this in the rocket tutorial, these 3 tools, but then it will happen while you're modeling. For example, if you decided that you needed a special hole, or you decided that you needed to close something, okay, these are the tools that will come in handy. Okay, the last tool that we are gonna do okay, the last tool we're going to do is duplicate and center pivot. So this tool will definitely happen in your tutorial. You definitely see it. So what are these two? Okay, duplicate. So we're talking about the fins just now, right? We don't just model one fin. I mean, we don't just model all the fins. We actually duplicated them. So the shortcut key for duplicate is Control D. It's going to duplicate right on top of itself, so you need to move it apart. So if you're not sure whether you have to duplicate it or not, right, just go to the outliner. Remember this last button at the bottom? You can see how many things there are in your scene, right? So when you duplicate, you can see there's one more there. That's a good question. Okay, I've never really thought about that. essentially, if you were to do it Control C, Control V. Okay, what it does, right, is it created Okay, it looks like it's doing a duplicate as well. For example, you can see that it created an empty group and then it put the object inside, right? So usually I would presume that copy and paste is done between scenes, for example. Yeah, but then we don't use that very often. In fact, right, yeah, I never use that at all. Maybe for very special cases, I believe, like, yeah. Usually we duplicate a lot more. Because even if it's copying and pasting between scenes, right, we use import and export. Yeah, so you can explore and see what it really does, but nothing much. I believe, okay. Yeah, it works exactly the same. So to me, right, duplicate works better because it doesn't create like this extra group that I don't really like. And then you have to clear it and, you know, yeah. So in fact, it's more troublesome. Okay, so Control D, Command D, Control D also can, yeah. Okay, so anyway, it's under Edit, Duplicate. Now you do see two other duplicates, okay? One is called Duplicate Special, the other is called Duplicate with Transform. So once you kind of really learn what duplicate does, right? Duplicate is just to Command D and bring it over, right? I think my stuff is snapping for some reason. Okay, so Duplicate with Transform is very fun. Okay, it's the shortcut key is Shift D. So what it does is, let's say I were to Control D and I move it up a certain amount of distance, right? And then when you start to Shift D, it's going to remember the distance and it's going to duplicate with the added transform. So you can kind of do like a staircase, or you know, like your spiral staircase. You can actually duplicate and rotate, and then you can Shift D and you start to build. This one? Edit mesh. Edit mesh. Got duplicate mesh? Where? Below. Oh, okay, this is to duplicate the face. That means, right, you actually have to go into the component here. And then let's say you want an addition, you want to take out, let's say you want to take out a very special shape like this, right? So you just need to duplicate. Where's my duplicate? Okay, here, duplicate. And then it has this weird gizmo again. It looks like extrude. Can you see that? Okay, if you don't want to like change the shape, you can just go back to your move tool and then look for it. So there's another piece inside the group. Then you can kind of extract out parts of your model. So if you build like, let's say for human, right, you want to model the hair, you want to isolate the scalp, right? So you want to like kind of select the faces around the skull area, and then you duplicate face. So you get that patch there. Okay, so that's for duplicate with transform. Duplicate, if you cannot absorb the other two duplicates, right, don't worry about it, okay? Just your main objective is just to understand that you can duplicate. Now, duplicate special is even more special because you can determine the distance and you can determine the number very quickly. For example, right, if I want a cube. Oh yeah, these are all extra things that the poor morning students didn't get because I'm really very out in the morning. So, actually a bit more awake now, so yeah, maybe I might go into the weird zone again later. Okay, anyway, let's say I want to create 5 copies. not including the current one, okay, 5 additional copies. I choose copy here. And let's say I want to move each copy by 1 unit in the x direction. So this is x, y, z. Okay, so I want to move it 1 unit in the x direction. I want to rotate 30 degrees in the y-axis, and maybe I want it to grow let me think. I want it to grow by 1.5 of the size each time. Okay, so let's see what happens. Alright, I have no idea what will happen though. I just know that it will move. I know it will rotate and it will get bigger. Okay, so once I click apply, can you see that? It's moving, it's rotating, and it's getting bigger. So, okay, let's look at it one at a time so it doesn't look so crazy, okay? So, let's say 0. Okay. Let's say I'm going to move by 1 unit. Or maybe 2 units will be a bit better. You can see straight away I created 5 copies in one step. Okay, and if I were to rotate 30 degrees each time, it's moving 2 units every time. See that? If you turn on the grid, it's still 2 units apart, but it's also rotating. And then I start to scale, like what I did before. It's gonna get bigger. Okay? So that's for duplicate special. Basically, they are just additional tools to help you do things in one button, just by clicking or by setting. If you know what you already want, you can straight away set it up in duplicate special. But can you do it by hand? Definitely, okay? You can just simply do duplicate, move, rotate. Duplicate, move, rotate, scale. You know, you can do all these things on your own manually by calculating it over here. Why not? Alright, so if you don't understand, start from Control D. If you do know what's going on, then you know duplicate special is your friend. Okay, so that is it for duplicate. Now the last thing that we're going to look at is how do we duplicate something, right, and spin it 360. We kind of already did that in duplicate special, correct? But then there's another method that we can do that is more hands-on. And let's say if you don't know what's the calculation, for example, you don't know how much to move, you don't know how many degrees to move, but you want to move it yourself, okay? So how do we do that? How do we duplicate in a circle around a single point? There is something called a pivot point. Okay, now whenever you move your object, right, can you see that your gizmo is right in the center of your object? Okay, when you rotate, when you scale, it's right in the center, right? Now, what happens if I were to select my face? So can you try that right now? Just create a cube, go to face mode, select everything, and move your faces. Not your object, okay? Move the faces. Can you see what happened to your pivot point?
How do you move the face?
Okay, again, so you have your object created, right, in the middle of the world with your gizmo in the middle. So go to face, select everything, okay, and just move it. Move the whole thing. Now go back to object mode. Your pivot should be stuck at the origin, right? Okay? Yes? Anybody stuck? Yes? Can? Okay. So, Now, if we have the pivot here, you might think, no big deal, right? I mean, I still can move. Correct or not? At most, I just try and like use brute force to work through this thing, okay? So yes, you still can move, but if you were to scale, right? Let's say I want to scale proportionately from the middle. Can you see that when I try to scale, my whole cube is shifting away? Yes, you can brute force, you can just bring it back. Yeah, why not, you know? How about if I were to rotate? Okay, rotate is an even bigger deal, okay? It just goes everywhere around the center point. There's no control. If you want to rotate on the spot, right? There's no way, okay? You're like, oh crap, then you gotta move it again. So we need to get the pivot back into the center, right? The reason for the pivot shifting, right, is because the pivot recognizes that the object is still here. It's just that you move away parts of the model, you move away the faces. So it doesn't recognize that all the faces are being moved away. What it recognizes is that you move the face, so you are kind of making the whole model bigger in that sense. Okay? So it's expecting the model to be here and here, this big. When you move the face. If you move the object, right, the whole thing moves together, correct? But the moment you're in component mode, it looks like the gizmo is back to where it is. Okay, but the gizmo follows your component. Okay, the moment you get out, your pivot is back to object mode. So how do you get the pivot in object mode to be in the center? There's something called the center pivot. Is under modify. So remember, anything that's before Windows is standard throughout all the modeling sets. So you can be in any of the modeling sets, and anything here, your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, your 7 menus are all the same. Okay. So we have modify, and we want to center pivot. So when you click on that, snap is going to go back to original. So now everything will be much better. Okay, you don't have to brute force everything. Okay, it can be very easy to control. So the idea of moving pivots, right, it can be something that works against you, like what we saw just now, or it can actually be your friend. Okay, what do I mean? If you don't remember just now, our pivot was in the origin. Okay, and then when we try to rotate, right, it actually moves around the center point. So this is very useful if we want to duplicate in a ring manually. Okay, so this will be very, very useful. So how can we do something like that? Okay, let's create another cube. So just clear your scene and create a new cube. We are not gonna do what we did, like move the face away, okay? Because that one we don't have much control. We are gonna actually learn how to move the pivot itself around. So sometimes we can say even like, let's say this is the table leg, the leg of your table, and you find that it's planted on the floor like this, okay? You find that it's too short, and you want to scale the leg up. So if you were to scale, it's going to eat into the floor, right? It's going to go through the grid like that. But if you change your pivot point to move it down to the ground, the moment you try to scale, the pivot point is holding on to the mesh while it pushes up. So things like that, the pivot point is very useful. Okay, it can help to anchor things down. Okay, it can help to make it rotate around a specific point in your object. If you want the corner to be the anchor, then you can kind of like use that to rotate around. Okay, so it's still very useful to learn. So how to do that? 2 shortcut keys. One is D, X. Okay, one more, V. Okay, D is to move pivot. Alright? So if you hold down your D key, you can see that your gizmo changes. Correct? Even if you're in selection mode, Q, you don't see anything. You need to be in one of your transform, move, rotate, scale. Okay, any one of them will do. And you press the D, you can see that your gizmo starts to become like this multiple thing again, which means that you can actually rotate your pivot, but there's no point. Okay, pivot is a point. Actually, there's a point. If you rotate your pivot, for example, right, later your move tool will look like that. Yeah. So if you hold down D, you can click the center and you can move it around in space. You can use the arrow to move. You can rotate. Okay, but of course you cannot scale because it's a point in space. There's no point scaling. Okay, so if you don't want to rotate your pivot, make sure you don't touch the rotation. So that is D. Now, but if we want to snap it to the grid, right, we want it to be in the origin. So maybe let me just move, let's move our cube away. We just like put it like in a distance from the center. If we try to aim it to the origin, right, we can be close, but we can never be accurate. Okay, so there's actually something called snap. We can snap to grid, and we can snap to vertex. So if you hold down D, and then you also hold down X, so it's like Street Fighter, okay? You need to remember your combo keys. Okay, so it's a combo of both together. So DX, and you move it around, you can feel that it is snapping towards, it's snapping on the points of the grid, right? So you can snap it directly in the origin. If you hold DV, you are snapping to the point, so you can actually snap it to the corner of your vertex. I mean to the corner of your object. So V is for vertex, X is for grid. Okay, so just snap it to the origin and then Control D, rotate. Control D, rotate. If you want to repeat, then just Shift D. Oh, cannot. Sorry, Shift D doesn't work. Why doesn't work leh? Oh yeah, it does, it does. Immediately, if you Shift D again, right, it's gonna continue the rotation. Okay, so take some time, take the next 1 to 2 minutes. Just mess around with like moving things, duplicating stuff, okay, creating like weird structures.